Hello. Good morning. Thank you for joining us in our second forum. I would like to ask you to please silence or turn off your cell phones if you have them with you. I'd also like to ask you to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to introduce and thank our nominating committee, Charles Hemphill, Arnold Grishkin, Alan Owens, Farah Mockstaw, and R.D. Correct. So thank you for your time in our 2015 election. Before we got started today, the candidates drew numbers to see who's going to go first. Erica Hedlund's going to go first with her statements this morning. Before we do that, though, a couple of just housekeeping items. For your, do we have any part-time residents and your mail goes out to your homes and wherever you live? I have this little flyer up on the back table. Make sure you pick this up because your ballot will be mailed out to your residents outside of Sun City Shadow Hills. If you want your ballot to be mailed to your Sun City Shadow Hills address, you'll have to contact the election company that's handling the ballots so they can mail you another copy here. Okay? So this flyer's on the back table. Make sure you pick this up so it's got their telephone number and their email address so you can contact them. So, at this time, I'd like to introduce Bruce Bonifay. He's going to be our moderator for this morning. Bruce?
Thank you, Cesar. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Hope everyone's having a good day. It's going to get a lot more interesting very soon. Good morning to the candidates. Erica, I've known for many, many years. Georgiana, I've only met recently. Nice to see you again. Oh, okay. There you go. The first thing we're supposed to do is introduce the candidates, which has obviously already been done. And now we're going to go with we're going to start with candidate statements. Each candidate will get an opportunity to address you individually, and then we'll get on with the Q&A part. And as I recall, Erica, you're going to begin, right? So let's start with you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Good morning, everyone.
Oh, just a sound check. Can everybody hear Erica?
Sound check. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, raise your hand. But you can. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our second candidate forum. I know many of you in the audience. I hope many of you know me. I have lived in Sun City Shadow Hills for 10 years. I have always been a homeowner advocate. In the past few weeks, I have talked with hundreds of homeowners, listening to their ideas and their concerns. And I am continually impressed by their energy, their intelligence, their creativity, and their talents. These people are the real amenities in Sun City Shadow Hills because they keep our community alive and well and interesting. I look forward to working with the homeowners on the board to make the changes that they said we need. The common thread that ran through our discussions is that we need a change in the board policies. People are angry with the $200 fines that are imposed on them for driving violations, even though they haven't incurred the fines yet. I support a more reasonable fine structure and graduated increases for those people who continually violate the driving rules. They're also upset because they didn't receive notification of all the fines that are being imposed on people. Homeowners are becoming wise to the fact that over $500,000 has been poured into the restaurant without any substantial improvement in the food, the service, the acoustics, etc. And PCM continues to be paid $3,000 per month for managing the restaurant, and it continues to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars each month. In the future, we need to change the way our community is managed. Previously, I used the term self-management, but that implies that we do the management, and that is not what I mean. I now use the term independent management. That means independent of PCM or any other large management firm. Independent management means that the board will hire and contract with firms to do the accounting, the landscaping, the hiring, and the training of the employees, etc., and then hire a general manager or a CEO to oversee all those services. I will support independent management if the majority of homeowners support this type of management after all the faults and the problems have been studied and fully disclosed. I recommend we start studying this issue and report the results to the homeowners in December 2015. I believe the HOA can manage our finances better. For example, we have $3.5 million sitting in 3 different banks earning very little interest, if any. These are not reserves. The money is in checking accounts. How do I know this? The information is in the 2013 annual audit, Note 7. Invested at even 0.01% would earn $350,000 per year. Invested properly, it could earn more money. This money could be used for more pickleball courts, another tennis court, on-site storage for the Performing Arts Club. Presently, the females and males undress and dress in the same room, and 2 dressing rooms for the Performing Arts Club and the professional entertainers, and more meeting rooms for the club members. I support open committee meetings. Homeowners often want to submit their ideas to a committee. They want to hear their matter discussed, and they want to know what was decided. Closed meetings are not democratic. The bottom line is we need a gentler, kinder board who represents the interests of homeowners. I would like all homeowners treated with cordiality, respect, and fairness at board meetings, in committee meetings, in design review hearings, and in internal dispute hearings. You are now entitled to have a support person with you at internal dispute hearings. Compromise and settlement are always the best routes to take for both sides. Thank you. I would be honored to have your support and your vote.
Thank you, Erica. Now it's Georgiana's turn.
Thank you, Bruce. I want to thank everybody for coming here today. I really do appreciate it. It's the only time when we really get to have sort of an interaction with all of you. I've met some of you, but as chair of the Information Committee, I spend a lot of time asking you questions on a daily basis. I do, too, have a good idea, based on the questions that you ask, what the community is thinking. And for the most part, what I find is that most of you are quite happy. I'm happy here. I like it here. I think the place is extremely well managed. As the chair of the Information Committee, I deal with the Finance Committee, Finance Advisory Committee. I deal with your board on a daily basis. There is no $3.5 million sitting anywhere in an account that's not part of reserves or the operating expenses. There is no such fund. I don't know where this is coming from, but I can tell you without a doubt, there is no such fund. We have $10 million in reserves, and we have an operating fund. That's all there is to it. There is no additional fund sitting anywhere. Our monies are invested appropriately. They are invested in a safe way. We could all probably double our money, but at the same time, we could probably all lose it. And I don't think any of us want to lose our money. So it is part of our job as a community is to ensure that our finances are protected. I've worked in the world of finance for a number of years. I worked as an international financier. I brought investors to the United States to invest in American companies, and I took American companies overseas looking for investments. This is an area that I'm very, very comfortable in. I've also been an auditor. I've been a forensic auditor. I know how to look at books. I know how to read the financial statements. I know how to investigate when I think there's a problem somewhere. There's none of this here. What I am concerned about is that the place continue to be maintained on a regular basis in a manner that allows us to be competitive with other communities, so our real estate values stay high, and that our amenities stay in the best form possible, that we continue to maintain them and improve them in the future. I support completely the board's newest strategic plan to look at all of the amenities here, including everything from this backstage to pickleball courts to whatever needs to be looked at. I support their effort to look at this in a systematic, business-like way to determine what's best for our community, what the people here want, not particular groups, but what's good for the entire community, because that's their fiduciary responsibility. Our responsibility is to look at the entire community and say what works. Does that mean we need more pickleball courts? Maybe. It's the fastest growing sport for people over 50, and we have 2 courts. But we need to look at it in a business-like manner, in a systematic manner. And I think that's what our board is currently doing. I think it's a smart way. I'd like to join them in that effort. I think it's prudent. Everything I've ever done in my life has been about researching, analyzing, and determining what's best. And as your board member, that's what I would continue to do. I have no allegiance to any particular group. One of the reasons I ran was I was hoping I could bring disparate groups together. I was hoping that could happen here because I don't like the divisions that I see. I don't want those exacerbated. I want the place to come together. I like it here. I like it being peaceful. I like it being calm. I like getting along with everybody. And I want to continue to have that be true here and make it even more so. I listen. I think anybody who's been to, that I've met, or anybody I've worked on committees with, they know that I listen. Now, if I think after a certain amount of research that something should be done, I will stand up and fight for it. I fought for this cafe over here because it was the only non-golf entity in the entire community. I fought that it get better. I fought that the food get better. I fought that we keep it. I'm a fighter, and I will fight for you. I will fight for all of you, no matter what. And thank you for letting me talk today.
Well, thank you, Georgiana. And now we have a statement from Stu Stryker, which I've been asked to read because, as Stu is not here. So this is the opening statement for Stu. I am truly sorry that I cannot be with you this morning. Long ago plans have us out of the country. Since I am not able to answer any questions today, I thought it best just to go with the track record as to what has been accomplished since you elected me to your HOA board. If you attend the board meetings, you will notice that residents' concerns and questions are now one of the first items on the agenda. You will also notice that if possible, their questions are answered then and there. You should also notice that there is more information coming to residents than at any time in the past. Be it financials posted in the View, questions answered on our website, or just explanations of how things work in our HOA with the President's Report. You may not be aware that no payment to any vendor or individual is made without 2 board members' approval. We now have a complete job description and a list of responsibilities for every employee we have on staff. Thus verifying we have budgeted the correct amount for payroll. In addition to our management company making their budget every month, I receive a payroll report and timesheets that are matched up to our operating reports to verify payroll costs. Our most precious resources, our residents, are more involved with giving input to our community than any time in the past. With the addition of new advisory committees, subcommittees, and ad hoc committees, we have almost doubled our resident involvement from years past. We have 4 major contracts that we review every year. We have now split them up so there is only 1 contract up for review each quarter. We have researched and chosen superior vendors for our contracts, and if we stayed with the same vendor, we have reduced costs in most cases dramatically. For a minimum amount of money, we have refurbished our restaurant, we have hired a new management staff and chef. Your reserve expenditures are monitored by a finance subcommittee. That committee has saved the community hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know of no community in the Coachella Valley that has recently lowered its association dues like we have done for you. All the above mentioned items I have either spearheaded or been intimately involved with. There is more we can accomplish, so if you like the direction we are going, then I would ask you to vote Stu Stryker to another term on your HOA board. Please, Stu's statement. Now we're at the fun part, the Q&A. I get to act like Alex Trebek. Our first question, so that you know, these questions were prepared by the nominating committee, and I have not seen them before this morning. No one has seen them before right now except the nominating committee. First question, and we're going to begin with Erica. How do you address the practice of allowing RVs to park on the street overnight for 3 days, but disallow passenger cars to do the same?
Well, that rule is obviously inconsistent. So if I were elected to the board, we would try to establish some consistency in regard to rules such as that and other rules that are inconsistent. Thank you.
Thank you. Georgiana?
You know, I don't really know about that. I hadn't really thought about that, but I think I would have to agree with Erica.
Okay. You do realize you have 2 minutes to answer the question. We'll be done here in about 18 minutes. No, that's great. I've done a lot of these forums. I wish all candidates were so succinct. Another RV question. Would you consider another place for RVs to park rather than on our residential streets where they can obstruct the vision of pedestrians as well as drivers?
Is that mine, Bruce?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Georgiana, you go first.
Well, I think it would depend. We have a lot of people that come into town during the holidays. I've noticed that there are some RVs parked on our streets, and they're allowed to stay longer than 3 days during the holidays. They aren't allowed to stay in them, but they are allowed to stay there a little bit longer. I think for longer-term RV parking, I think Sun City Palm Desert actually has an RV lot that allows people to pay a minimal amount of money, $235, something like that, a month. I think if we could look at that, and again, in a business-like manner, looking at something like that where we might be able to find it self-supporting, we might want to explore something like that. We have a lot of people here who own RVs. They don't have a place to park them currently. You can't park them on the street for long term. It may be wise to investigate as part of the strategic plan how we might work on something like that, like Sun City Palm Desert does. I think there's this over on 40th or Madison or something like that. But I think it might be a wise idea to look at. Thank you.
Erica?
I think the storage parking place for RVs was part of the original amenity. It was in the in the strategic plan for the amenities committee way back 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, etc. And that is another matter that didn't materialize. But if we had the property, or if we could purchase property for storage space for RVs, etc., that would be income producing and would probably pay for itself. So it definitely is something we should consider because many residents own RVs and would like to store or park their RVs closer to home. So I tend to agree with Ms. Mims that we should look into it as part of the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of these questions are grouped according to subject, so I'm going to jump around so that we're not on the same subject for half an hour. This is a question, Erica, on the golf course. Do you agree with the concept of not overseeding the rough on the golf course during the winter months?
I am not a landscape expert. I'm not a golf course expert. I do know that as I talk with people, they have complained about the looks of the golf course, particularly the snowbirds that come and find, their view has been not obstructed, but it has been lessened. The appreciation of the golf course has been lessened because it looks more like a hayfield than a golf course. And I hear those criticisms. At the same time, we do have a water shortage, and I believe that's part of the plan to save water and save money not to water it. So we have to weigh those considerations against one another. Other country clubs water their golf courses and look beautiful, and it looks beautiful. Others don't. So it's really up to the homeowners. What do you want? Do you want a golf course looking like a hayfield, or do you want to increase the water shortage and not water and increase it and water your golf course? I have no feelings. I live on the golf course. What I see, I live on the first green or near the first green, etc. So mine is green. But as I walk around, for newcomers to the community, I'm sure they're not impressed. So I don't know the answer to that. It would take a vote of the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgiana. You want me to repeat the question? Or
Yeah, as I spoke with the Golf Advisory Committee, I learned the reasons for why they advised for not overseeding this year. And one of the reasons is the drought. As Erica explained, we had the worst drought in 112 years, and we saved 850,000 gallons of water by not watering this year. The other consideration was, I think some of you know this, it's a little technical, but we have a kind of turf that was put in by the original developer that's not the right turf for here. I mean, the hint might have been that it was developed at the University of Georgia, but it's southeastern turf, and it's not the right turf for our golf course, and we fight with it constantly to try to maintain it and keep it in good condition. The other thing is the soil underneath the course is on the south course anyway, is clay, and so as a result, you see a lot of burn marks or whatever. They're fighting constantly trying to keep the grass healthy. So one of the reasons they didn't do this was the agronomist from the USGA said, don't overseed this year, let's try to give it make it a little stronger. The third consideration was cost. They saved $185,000 by not doing it. This particular year, I think I would have gone along with the board who voted unanimously to do this because there were 3 of those conditions, and it seems to me while any one of them might not have been sufficient, all of them together made it necessary. Would I do it next year? I don't know. Depends. The drought seems to be a little bit better. Not terrific, but a little bit better. I think they said we need 10 more storms for it to actually be fine again in California. But these are the things that we'd have to look at on an annual basis. I come from the southeast where no one oversees the rough in the first place. So I'm used to seeing it like this. But I understand for people who live here, a lot of them think green is the only way to go. So I think you have to look at the business considerations again and say, and the ecological considerations, and you have to look at that. And that, as your board member, that's what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Georgina, you get the next question first. This is regarding clubs. How will you ensure that charter clubs submit annual reports by year end and are reviewed by the board in a timely manner?
Thank you. This is a really important issue for me. We just went through the whole EIN matter and the employee identification number. And as most of you are aware, the clubs were asked, I'm sure most of you are aware, I hope you were, the clubs were asked to go get their own employee identification number. The reason for this was to shift the responsibility for the finances of the club back to the clubs. That was the intent of it, from the general membership. So that if you were a general resident here, you wouldn't have to have any liability for the $80,000 that some club collected. That wouldn't be your responsibility. That was the intent. Part of the problem is that our CC&Rs, our rules and regulations, they're murky. You can't make clubs separate today based on the CC&Rs and the rules and regulations. The rules say that the clubs have to submit their contracts to the board. Well, as long as they have to do that, the board continues to be inevitably linked with the clubs. So I think one of the things that we would have to do is go through all of the CCNRs as soon as Pulte leaves, and we're allowed to change them. And we would have to look at our rules and regulations in a systematic manner again, and we have to change them so that we know what is the best way. Do we separate the clubs completely and make them independent, let them do what they want, don't sign their contracts, don't be concerned with who they hire, or do we come over here and say, okay, we're going to look at your books, we're going to audit you, which is what it now cover says. We must audit them. If we don't audit them, they would have to be shut down, which is unfortunate if they can't produce their books. But if somebody's gathering $80,000 of money here in the community, we have a responsibility to look after that as long as we're signing contracts. But my primary concern is that the rules and regulations, the CCNRs, be fixed so that we have some standardization here. We either do one or we do the other. And I think the community has to have input in that. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Erica.
Excuse me, Bruce, would you repeat the question,
Sure.
please?
How will you ensure that charter clubs submit annual reports by year end and are reviewed by the board in a timely manner?
Well, in my rule book, if they're supposed to, by rules, supposed to submit their annual reports and they don't, then you don't charter the club anymore. That would seem like a simple solution. I don't know why they don't submit their reports. We'd have to take a survey to find out why they aren't submitting their reports. I don't know who doesn't submit their reports. I understand there's someone on the finance committee that's supposed to be in charge of that, and so that person should be reporting that information to the board. And if the clubs don't cooperate, then maybe they shouldn't exist. The rule seems simple. Ms. Mintz brought up the issue of the EIN, etc. That's really a complicated issue. The IRS, I think there's a rule that says we are a nonprofit corporation, and if we have organizations within that nonprofit corporation, then those organizations need to have their own EIN. So the clubs can all operate under one EIN, and it doesn't have to be the HOA's EIN. Of course, you may need an accountant to file, the reports that need to be filed to the IRS. I don't know if there's an accountant that would be willing to do that on a volunteer basis, but that is what would be required. So that issue definitely needs to be explored. It is complicated. I don't think our homeowners association can get an exemption from the IRS, but it's a complicated issue. It needs to be studied. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to jump back to traffic. And Erica, you get this first question. Do you approve of the $200 traffic violation fine? And do you think the board should have discussed the traffic violation fine of $200 with the homeowners before it was implemented?
Yes, I definitely think that any fine that is going to be imposed should be discussed with the homeowners. They should be notified of any fine that they're going to impose on people. Fines have been imposed for arguing with waiters, for arguing with security, etc. People are not happy about that. Of course, we shouldn't use profanity with those people, but people need to be informed about the fines. The driving fine of $200, I support a more reasonable fine and a graduated fee structure for frequent violators. So the board can decide what is more reasonable. Residents are not happy with that. They are upset with it, particularly if they have a vendor, a one-time vendor come into the community and that vendor exceeds the speed limit or doesn't stop at the stop sign or something. That vendor is cited and the homeowner is responsible for paying the fee. I met a disabled person who incurred that $200 fine because a one-time vendor came in and the vendor sped through a stop sign, etc., and now this disabled person has to pay that $200 fine, and that is not good. I suggested to him that he talk to the HOA office and schedule a hearing to see if he can work that out. Yes, all fines, that was in my statement, all fines, we should receive notification of all fines that are going to be imposed. just arbitrarily imposing those fines on us is not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Georgiana, do you want to repeat it?
Hi. Again, as a chair of the Information Committee, I get to see the statistics of the traffic violations in the community. And when I saw the people going 65 miles an hour down Avenida Estuco, and actually on the way on this morning here, I had somebody who did blow through a stop sign and almost hit me on my golf cart. I actually believe that, based upon what the Security Advisory Committee said, that there was a problem here. We had people who actually were challenging the speed signs, I don't know what you call those, but those speed signs. They'd see them and they'd see they were going 45 and they'd speed up to 55. I have grandchildren. I don't know about you, but I walk on the side streets with my grandchildren. I don't want anybody going 65 miles an hour. I don't want people blowing through stop signs. This was not an arbitrary decision. It was a unanimous decision by the board, unanimous. All 5 people on the board, after looking at what the Security Advisory Committee said, they made a decision that this may be, in fact, a very good way to get people's attention, to get them to stop blowing through stop signs, and to get them to stop speeding down our side streets. There's actually case law that says that once they knew that information, once they knew how the people were behaving here, if they didn't act to stop it, the Homeowners Association as a whole could be sued by anybody here who had an accident. Now, so I would go along with that and felt that the board had not acted in a good manner. One of the other issues is, at the last board meeting, they discussed the vendor issue of the single vendor coming in. And my understanding is Greg Middlebrook mentioned that this was under discussion, it would be changed, this would no longer happen. There would not be a problem with a single vendor. So I think that's very much into consideration. It was one of the questions that came in through Ask a Question. People wanted to know, what about that single vendor? As you know, all your other vendors are in the vendor access program, and they pay their own tickets. I've heard people say to me here, they say, well, I'm older, and so you should be a little easier on me and realize that I don't stop so well at stop signs. And my comment to them was, I'm older, and you should understand that sometimes I don't see you not stopping at a stop sign. Thank you for letting me share.
Well, there's a very closely related question which we seem to be on this topic, so I'll ask it. You may feel you've already answered it, but it is a separate question, so I'd appreciate a separate answer. Georgina, would you support a tiered system of traffic fines so that a resident who is driving pays the $200 fine and pays a lesser amount if one of the resident's guests or vendors is the driver, since the resident has no control over a third party?
Well, again, I think that the board has taken this under consideration by saying that they're going to look at those single vendors. Let's be very clear. We are responsible for our own driving, and the vendors in the vendor access program, they are responsible for their own tickets. We are not responsible for them. We are responsible for our family, our guests. I know when I used to go visit my dad, in his community, the speed limit was 19 miles an hour, and he would tell me the second I got there, don't go over 19 miles an hour. And I would crawl down his community. They have understood that there is a problem with the single vendor that might come in, and they are looking at that, and because they understand that it's not fair, it doesn't make sense, but they're looking at a way to make sure that we keep the community safe, but we also don't penalize homeowners who have no control over that issue. And I would agree with that. Oh, as to the tiered part, because I don't have my thing back here yet, I don't have my sign telling me I'm done. I have to tell you, I'm not sure how much it is to get a ticket outside of the community. I'm not sure how much the city of Indio charges you for a ticket these days. I don't know about you, but I get sticker shock at everything. I go look at a car and I think it's way more expensive than it should be. But I think it's somewhere around $400, and that fine goes on your license. Our fines don't go on the license. I understand also that if you come in, I think, if you were to come in a reasonable manner and explain, this is my only ticket, you may get a warning. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're wrong.
Okay. I believe there have been situations, I know in my own case, I was stopped and I was given a warning. So I think this sometimes happened. I think for the first month that it was on, nobody got a ticket, nobody got a charge. They made sure everybody was aware of the situation. They blasted that there would be these fines. For me, I have to say that I stop and make sure I count to 3 or 4. I'm very careful of my speed limit, but then I always was, because I don't want to hurt anybody.
Virginia, time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Erica?
Okay, Bruce, would you repeat the
Yeah,
question?
sure.
And maybe back up from your microphone just a little bit,
Oh.
please. Thank you.
Would you support a tiered system of traffic fines so that a resident who is driving pays the $200 fine and pays a lesser amount if one of the resident's guests or vendors is the driver, since the resident has no control over a third party?
Okay. I support a graduated fee structure. Maybe this would entail a lot of bookkeeping, but I think residents should be warned first. Residents I'm talking about, not vendors. Vendors belonging to the what is that called? The
Vendor access.
The vendor access program, thank you. They pay the fines if they're caught speeding or not stopping, things like that. I think if you're going to have a guest come in, that you should warn them ahead of time that follow the speed limits or you will be given a speeding ticket and a fine. I think homeowners should be advised, don't call in single vendors, or if you do, be aware that if they speed or go through a stop sign, you're going to be responsible for the fine. I don't know if all homeowners know that. Let's see what I was going to say. The board, I understand, has been looking at that single vendor program, but they've been looking at it for over a month. And so I think maybe they should come to some decision pretty soon, or whatever it is, the security committee who's looking at it. It's time that they reach a resolution, because homeowners are being fined for those vendors who speed or don't stop at the stop signs. So let's hear from the board soon about that. That would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, would you support replacing the current gate security system with one that is more sophisticated, allowing residents' usage of specific gates and vendors' usage of gates different from the residents?
That is a cost item. I don't think we need separate gates for vendors and separate gates for residents. If that's what you said, I didn't quite understand everything you said.
That's the gist of the question.
That's the gist. Okay, no, that would be a cost item, and I don't know that it would reduce the problem of vendors coming in who don't have their access ticket or whatever. So no, I would not support that.
Thank you, Georgina.
If I understand the question correctly, you're talking about different gates for vendors?
Would you support, I'm not supposed to interpret the questions, but would you support replacing the current gate security system with one that is more sophisticated, allowing residents' usage of specific gates and vendors' usage of gates different from the residents?
Well, I believe we are replacing our gate system at the moment. I'm not sure what it allows itself to do other than it's a little more efficient than what we currently have. We just changed vendors, as the board mentioned last month in the board meeting. But as to having separate facilities for separate gates for vendors, I don't see any particular purpose for that. So I would not be for that. Thank you.
Thank you. One more traffic question, and I'm only kidding here, but what do you think should be done with the money that is collected from traffic violations other than paying the moderator at your candidates? Other than paying the moderator at your candidates? No. What do you think it's no joke around here. When you're on the board, volunteer committee, whatever, you don't get paid. You're paid exactly what you're worth, which is... What do you think should be done with the money that is collected from traffic violations? And we're going to start with Georgina.
I think, again, I hope there's not a lot of money, to be honest. I hope there's not a lot of money. I hope everybody drives safely, pays attention, and I hope we don't collect any fines. I know during this first month, they haven't collected any fines. It's been all warnings. But there's been a lot of them. So that's a real problem. We have a lot of people who are speeding, but we haven't collected any fines yet. I don't know. I think, again, that has to do with, I know right now it would go into the general fund. That's where they've always gone for the homeowners' use. I think maybe, again, depending on how much it ends up being. And again, please don't speed and don't blow through stop signs. I don't want that money to be here. I don't want it at all. I just want the place to be safe. I have no idea what we would use it for because I don't know how much it's going to be. So I think it's fine in the general fund. If with the strategic plan we come up with something that we need, then we'll use it. But I'm hoping that we don't have a large fund. Thank you.
Erica?
I think that's very nice that fines haven't been charged to people during the month of January so far. However, in the past, the HOA has collected about $14,000 or $15,000 from fines, and you can check that in the budget. That's close to a fact that I read. Speeding is, all speeding creates a risk of harm. 25 miles an hour can kill someone. It can, you know. When I leave the Jefferson Gate, and wait for the light to turn green, some people take 3 to 5 seconds before they react to the green light. You don't have that long to react when a golf cart darts in front of you or a pedestrian is crossing the crosswalk. You don't have that time. So that is the purpose of the speeding rules. The money collected, well, I guess currently it's currently put into the budget. I'm not sure how it should be spent. I think that should be left up to a committee to decide. We don't want to have a party with the money. We don't want it for a lifestyle event because that's collecting money from people for a purpose that, you know, it just doesn't make sense to frivolously use that money. I'm not sure what to do with the money, but I am in favor of collecting fines from people that speed and that don't stop at the stop signs. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, this next question is for you. First, what would you propose to do to alleviate the long wait lines at the front gate?
I don't know what's causing the lines at the front gate. I haven't talked to those security people, so I'm not sure. It seems like our recognition system is not working as quickly as it should, meaning if homeowners call in and say, Betty Jones is coming through the gate please, around 9 o'clock, please let her in, that should be in their security, in their computer system. All they need to do is punch in your address and the message that you recently emailed to them, and if that's Betty Jones and she can prove she's Betty Jones, then let her in. I don't think it should take 5 or 10 minutes, and people are sitting that long in their cars waiting to get through. So possibly our computer system needs improvement, possibly our security people there need better training to react more quickly. Possibly the homeowner should advise the visitor or the vendor what they need to do to get through that gate quickly. Possibly there could be two lines rather than one line. There are all different possibilities, but it definitely needs to be researched. If that line goes out into Jefferson Street, that's not good. So our security system needs to be improved. Thanks.
Thank you. Georgiana?
Yeah, I think one of the issues is our guests that come. Our guests are forced to go back through the line every time they come. They come and they get a little card and they put it in the front of their car. But every time they come back in the community, they have to go back through that main gate. What I would think we might want to look at is some sort of key card system. When you're a guest, you register, you have a little card, and when you go in and go through one of the other gates, you just put it up against it, just like we put up our ID cards. Or you have in a hotel, you know, when you go to a hotel and you want to get into the back door, you put in a little magnetic card. I think that would be a relatively simple, cost-effective way to allow our guests to be able to come in and out while they are allowed to be here. It would be secure, it would be safe, it certainly would alleviate the lines at the front gate, and it's a pretty simple solution. Thanks for letting me share.
Okay, thank you. And we have 2 more questions. Georgiana, how would you address the issue regarding extreme dust, debris, and other problems on property that is adjacent to Sun City Shadow Hills that affects our residents?
I think city ordinances require that these places where there's a lot of sand put down a certain coating And I think that whenever we see, there's usually a sign up and it says, if you see sand blowing from this, call such and such number. If you go through, if you find debris in your neighborhood and you ask a question, I think you will find management will call and they will say, there's debris coming, please call the city, tell them to stop it. It's the most effective means of taking care of this particular problem. If you're talking about external issues, do have a little bit of debris coming from Pulte. I think management tries to get over there and look at it. We do get some complaints from people. Management does try to talk to Pulte and say, can you clean up some of it? I don't think it's on purpose. I think it's a matter of, it's just something that happens as a result of construction. So those are two relatively simple solutions to that particular problem. Just go to the website, ask a question, say, there's debris coming from such and such address. Can you ask management to call and ask the city to fix it? And every time we get a question like that here, whether it be we don't have a stop sign, can you get one on Madison or whatever, we've been able to get the city to do it, and they do it pretty quickly. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Erica?
Bruce, would you repeat
Sure.
the question, please?
How would you address the issue regarding extreme dust, debris, and other problems on properties that are adjacent to Sun City Shadow Hills that affect our residents?
Well, there's no way we can control the wind for sure. So when we have one of those dust storms, calling the city or Pulte or anybody else is not going to stop all that debris from blowing around. I've never called the city in regard or called Pulte in regard to stopping the dust from blowing around, so I don't know how effective that would be. Like I said, we've got no control over the wind. I'm not sure if you're... What I really dislike are the gardeners, our landscape maintenance people, etc., or the ones you hire that blow with their blowers, etc., and it blows all around, etc. And when you have 10 of those people on your block blowing all those things around, it does affect people with allergies, and there are many of us like that. So I think in Indian Wells, they don't allow those blowers. They use the vacuum cleaners that's there, and I personally think that would be something I would like to investigate, maybe one phase at a time, and please don't say or start rumors that I'm in favor of doing that. I'm just saying that's a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last question before our closing statements, beginning with Erica. At times, some of the community amenities are overcrowded. What suggestions do you have to alleviate this situation?
Excuse me, Bruce, what is overcrowded?
I'm sorry. So at times, some of the community amenities are overcrowded. What suggestions do you have to alleviate this situation?
Okay. In my opening statement, I said we had $3.5 million that is sitting in checking accounts that is not being utilized. I think we could build a few more meeting rooms with that money. I think the meeting rooms are not being utilized at different times of the day. Later in the day, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, etc. I know you may not like to go out to meetings at that time, but that's a way to utilize those meeting rooms. There's also the weekends when the meeting rooms are not being utilized. They could be utilized then. And if you have no objections to meeting on Sundays, those meeting rooms are available. So that's a step in that direction. However, I do believe in the future, maybe within the next 5 years, we need to build more meeting rooms, and that should be considered part of the strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Georgiana?
Again, there is no $3.5 million sitting around for anything. Our monies are in reserves, which can't be spent on any sort of capital expense. There are no other funds anywhere. I invite you all to go look at our financials and see that there are no other funds. They just aren't there. I don't know what people are talking about. The strategic plan the purpose of the strategic plan is precisely what Erica has discussed. The point is to look for and get input from the residents to determine what do we need to do here? Do we need to build up? Do we need to add space? I know that I know my friend Richard here has told me that concerts have 451 seats, and so we can hold 902 people, and we've never filled this particular room for that. But we do have a space problem. Anybody that runs a committee, anybody that's in a club, you know we can't find rooms. We can't find them when we need them. We need more space. That is the purpose of this strategic plan. That is its entire purpose, is to look at all of our facilities, all of our amenities, get input from the residents, and determine where we want to take this community in the future and how we're going to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes our questions. Caesar, how long do the candidates have for closing statements?
5 minutes.
35 minutes? 5 minutes. We're going to have our closing statements now, beginning with Stu isn't here to make one, but so we're going to start with Erica. You have 5 minutes.
I have shared with you what I know about the HOA finances, and I repeat, the money, the $3.5 million, is in checking accounts in 3 different banks: Bank of America, Co-America, and Union Bank, I believe, in checking accounts. It says that in the annual report. It is not a reserve account. There's still all of the finances are still a mystery to me as well as to the Finance Committee. If you ask a member of the Finance Committee why the year-end numbers are not, if you ask a member of the Finance Committee why the year-end numbers do not match the numbers on the IRS forms, they can't tell you, or they don't want to tell you. Transparency is only as effective as if the numbers are reported correctly. We need more transparency. We need to work together to change some board policies, and we want to make sure that the board does not create a greater problem with the regulation than the problem it has tried to resolve. We do not want our lives to become over-regulated with stringent rules and fines. We want our finances to be managed prudently and productively. If you want to change, you have to take that first step to make a change. I would be honored to have your support and your vote as your first step to make changes in the board's policies. Thank you.
Thank you. You can applaud. It's a closing statement. It's fine. Georgiana, your closing statement, please.
You know, this community is very well run. And there are people on committees that are extremely well qualified. I've sat in with the Finance Committee. I'm impressed by all of them. One of them is still working, one's a CPA, one is involved in contract. One of the advantages of working with the committees is you understand how they operate. You understand the reports that they're providing. If you're a finance person, you also can read them. Simply because money is in a checking account doesn't mean it's not a reserve. I mean, monies can be anywhere in any kind of an account, but they can be designated as reserves. This is just simple. And again, I'll reiterate, there is no $3.5 million. I wish somebody from the Finance Committee was here to defend themselves. This is the kind of thing I don't like. I want us all to understand that we have incredibly talented people here. We have people who are working very hard here for nothing. The Finance Committee spends, on the average, each one of them, some 65 to 70 hours a week or month, volunteering their time to look at our investments, to look at our finances, to ensure that our bank reconciliations are correct, that what we spent our money on is accurate, looking at the payroll, looking at make sure that it matches up to the budget. People are looking at the detail here on a regular basis for you, and they're doing so on a volunteer basis. And I think to cast aspersions on them really isn't very fair or productive. I would like to see this community get as much information as it can. That's why I volunteered to be on the Information Committee, so we could provide you with absolutely accurate information, answer any question that you have here, spend time with you. And I have to tell you, there were people, other residents here, who argued with me and said, we shouldn't have to tell them things. We shouldn't have to tell them what they want to know. And I argued and said, everybody in this community has a right to the information, on whatever level they can understand. Every single solitary person, because this is your community, this is your place, this is where you live, and you have a right to it. So my committee does this for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask questions. I think we've had 2 cases where people thought we were wrong, and we've been able to correct them and show them where they were incorrect. I'm very proud of my committee. I'm proud of the 7 people who work on it, and they work very hard. I'm very proud of every committee here, and every person who volunteers hundreds of hours to help make this community better. I'm proud of the club people. I mean, there are people here who are investing all kinds of time. And I keep seeing people, say, I don't like this or I don't like that. And you know what my comment is when I come to a meeting and somebody says, well, I don't like this or I don't like that? I go, come be on my committee. Come help. Because that's how it works. That's how it works here. We are a community. We are not a set of tribes. We are a community. We are one. There is no they here. There's only us. So please join me. If I'm your board member, I will try to pull this place together. I will continue to get as much information out that's accurate to anybody and everybody in this community. And thank you for letting me share the last time.
That completes our candidates forum this morning. Do you have another candidates forum? When is that scheduled, Steve?
Next one's going to be February 16th, 6 o'clock.
Right, and there may be new questions that have not been addressed today, so you might want to come back for that one. It could be very interesting, and I assume Stu will be here for that one, unless he's globetrotting again. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. A big hand for both of our candidates. I've been either an employee or a consultant to Pulte for going on 25 years. And I've served on many, many boards. And working as a resident board member at our communities is a very difficult job. It is really hard. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of love for the community to make that commitment. So I congratulate both these candidates for stepping up to try to do that, and good luck to both of you.
Thank you, Bruce, for your time.